this video is going to be a short one because it's only really on the first 3 slides, and that's because the back deals with measuring with a ruler, and I can't really show you how to measure with a ruler through the board here. So instead I've included 2 videos from YouTube that explain how to measure using a ruler in inches and also in centimeters. So if you need help with measuring with a ruler, you can watch those videos, or you can ask me and I can show you one-on-one how to do that, but I can't do that through a video. So this is really, like I said, only going to be on the first 3 slides. So finding distance on a number line. You're familiar with number lines. You've been using them since elementary school, but now we're going to put a little geometry spin on it. So we've already talked about segments, so now we're just going to talk about segments here on a number line. And if you look in this little box here, it says that AB, without anything over it, which is what we're looking at all 4 things here, there's no lines above here, that means you're going to find the length of that segment. So if I wanted to find CD, what they're really asking me is to find the length of this segment here from C to D. I want to know what that length is. And you just count however many spaces it is. Now this number line is not set up in inches or centimeters or any certain kind of units. It's just arbitrary. It's just a number line. So we're not going to have any units on the end of these answers. So from C to D, we're just going to count. Or you can go from D to C. It doesn't matter. Remember, segments have 2 endpoints, so it doesn't matter where you start and where you end. So if I just start at C and I count 1, 2, 3, 4.5, CD, that distance is 4.5. Now, if I want to find DE, again, that's from D to E, that segment. I want to find the length of that. This time I'll count backwards. So starting at E, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So DE is 5.5 units long. For EB, now I'm going from E to B or B to E. And again, we're just counting, and it doesn't matter where you start. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is from E to B. Now let's say, just for argument's sake, that these markings were not here in the middle. So I couldn't actually count. But they tell me where 0 is. The distance from -4 to 0 is 4, because remember there's no negative distances. I never say that something is -2 feet away from me. Even if it's behind me, it's still a positive distance. And then from C to E, that distance is 10. So 4 plus 10 still gives me the 14. Or I could even think about it a third way, and I'll show you that on this next one. So from A to D, okay? Again, I could just count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.5. Or what you could do is you could subtract their numbers, their coordinates. So A's coordinate is -8. And D's coordinate is 4.5. So if I subtract those, -8 minus 4.5, I get -12.5. However, we know that you can't have a negative distance. So if you think about it as being the absolute value, remember absolute value turns everything positive, but really you don't need to know that it's called absolute value. Just know that it makes it positive. So if I subtract the coordinates and then make that positive, I get the 12.5. So you can think about it that way as too. So there's a few different ways to do this rather than just counting, just in case the numbers get really big. So on the next slide, you're just going to count again, but notice, no, my board's taking a while, there we go, okay? Notice that now each marking is by 2s. So it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then this is now going to be at 11. Because halfway between 10 and 12 is 11. So W here is at -1, U is at -7, and then the other ones are right on a mark. But notice that they're by 2s now, so when you're counting, you're going to count by 2s. So for TV, from T to V, again, you can start either place, and we're just going to count 2, 4, 6, 8. And distances are never negative. So even if you go from V to T and you're going to the left, it's still a positive distance. WY, now I'm halfway in between, so when I count, I'm going to go to halfway in between. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. WY is 12. And then Z to U. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, and then that's not 26 and a half. Remember, it's by twos now. So this is to 26, so one more would make it 27. Okay. So now, this is a good time to pause the video, try those three on the right, and then in a few seconds you'll see the answers show up. So there's our answers for ST, SX, and XU. Again, you're just counting between the endpoints. If you have any questions on how to do that, you can either watch this again to hear me explain the first three, or call me over and I'll explain it to you. So now our last slide here that we're going to do in this video talks about midpoints, okay? And midpoints are just the middle of a segment. So it cuts a segment in half. A point that cuts a segment in half. So I just want to find the middle of the segment. Okay? So X to V. So here I am from X to V. There's my segment. I want to find the middle. Okay? So there's two ways to do this. You can just count in from the 2 points till you get to a middle point. Or I can see the total distance, the total length. So from V to X is 2, 4, 6, because I see they're in twos again. So 2, 4, 6. So half of 6 is 3. So 1, 2, 3. So this point right here, where that W is, that's going to be the coordinate of the midpoint. So W, which is really at -1. Okay, because not all of these midpoints are going to have a point there. So W is going to be my midpoint there. So what's the coordinate of the midpoint of YS? So Y is here and S is here. So again, I want to find the middle. So I could either count in until I meet, or let's look at the whole distance. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 29 is my total distance. So YS is 29. If I cut that in half, I get 14 and a half. So 14 and a half spaces in is where the midpoint is going to be. So I have to find that. So starting at S, I'm going to count 14 and a half. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 14 and a half is going to be -3 and a half. Now, if I counted 14 and a half in from Y, it's still going to be the same thing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and a half. So it ends up being the same spot. So right there, -3 and a half is going to be the midpoint of YS. And finally, my last one here, the coordinate of the midpoint of TX. So T to X, again, you can count in and see where they meet, or 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So TX is 14. That means the midpoint is found 7 spaces in. So 2, 4, 6, 7 ends at -5. Or again, instead of starting at T, you could have started at X and counted this way. 2, 4, 6, 7, and still got to that same spot. Okay, so finding distance, you're really just counting And finding midpoint, you're just dividing that length in half to find the middle. But just remember that midpoint means the middle of a segment. It cuts a segment in half. Okay? And again, if you need any help with the ruler stuff that's on the back of this, if you get the completed notes out of the crate, you'll be able to see all of the answers. So just let me know if you need any help with that.